Hi, everyone. Welcome back, and a thank you to Keeneland for such a lovely lunch. My next panel is certainly one that is near and dear to my heart. I have two off-the-track thoroughbreds that have been life-changing for me, one of whom I've had for almost 19 years. I've known him since he was a 3-year-old on the racetrack. He is 22 now and is my oldest friend. So the aftercare work done by folks in this industry is, I think, the heart of what we are doing. And moderating this panel is Erin Halliwell, the executive director of the TCA. So welcome.
Thank you to the Jockey Club and Grayson for including this important topic on the agenda today. So the programs we're going to learn about today are referred to as on-track placement programs, and they play a vital role in connecting racing owners and trainers to safe, trusted aftercare solutions for their horses. The primary goal of an on-track placement program is to facilitate responsible rehoming and make it as easy as possible for owners and trainers to set their horses up for success after racing. So let's meet our panel here. There at the end, we have Andy Belfiore. Andy started her career on the backside as a hot walker, groom, exercise rider, before joining Rick Violette's stable as assistant trainer. Andy then moved to the front side, joining NYRA in communications and marketing, and eventually the TDN. And then in 2015 became the executive director of NYTHA, where she also manages the Take Two and Take the Lead programs that we will learn about today. Next up is Lucinda Lovitt. Lucinda grew up riding and showing before attending the University of Arizona Racetrack Industry program. Lucinda then went on to work for the Thoroughbred Owners of California for 14 years, and in 2011 became the executive director of CARMA, the California Retirement Management Account, which we'll also hear about today as well. And then lastly, we have Chris Block. Chris started his career working with Hall of Fame trainer Bill Mott. Chris got his trainer's license in 1988 and became a leading conditioner in the Midwest. Along with his brother, he currently manages Team Block Stable and is the president of the Illinois Thoroughbred Horsemen's Association, as well as president of Galloping Out. So these programs that are represented here today have proven to be very impactful in producing positive outcomes for thoroughbreds because they help reduce the risk of horses falling through the cracks in the transition process, because they provide education and resources to connections considering various aftercare options. They strengthen collaboration among racing and aftercare stakeholders. By creating this structured pathway, these programs support both the immediate welfare of thoroughbreds and the long-term sustainability of our industry. So today we'll look at each of the program and kind of highlight some similarities and subtle differences that lend themselves to each program. And one of the salient points today that we'd like to convey, especially if there are any racetrack operators or horsemen's groups looking to start an on-track placement program, is that while these programs are all a bit different according to the nuance of their specific jurisdictions, they all accomplish the same goal, and that is to ensure positive outcomes for horses. So Andy, let's start with you. You're the executive director of the Take the Lead program in New York. And Take the Lead was established in 2013 by NYTHA and aims to serve as a liaison between owners and trainers of thoroughbreds at NYRA tracks. To say the program has been successful would be an understatement, as you are about to celebrate your 1,500th placement. So walk us through your program. Let's say I'm the owner of a horse at a NYRA track. My horse is perhaps no longer competitive, and instead of pressing for that one last race, I know that the best thing for my horse is to retire him while he might still be sound and have the best chance at a new career. So I go to your website, I fill out the intake request form, then what happens?
So usually, actually, somebody will give us a call. So our program is pretty lean. It's myself, our president is Rick Schosberg, and Jennifer Conti, who also works for NYTHA. And the owners and trainers have gotten to know us pretty well over the 13 years that we've been doing this. So they will give usually Rick or myself a call and say, hey, I've got a horse. And then the process starts. So we have online forms. We need an intake form so that we get all the pertinent information about the horse. And then there's a vet report form that will provide the Aftercare organization with, what the horse's physical condition is, vaccination dates, any diagnostics that are available, health history, all that good stuff. And once we have those forms in place, then usually Jennifer will go out, she'll get a video and photos of the horse that we will share with the Aftercare organization. And now we reach out and find one of our Aftercare partners, and we only partner with TAA accredited organizations who has a stall open. And then we'll make sure that we provide all the information that we have to them, and they will let us know when the opening is there. And then we actually provide the transportation to get the horse from the track to the Aftercare organization. And then we will also make sure that there is a donation that goes with the horse to the Aftercare organization to help offset the cost of the rehab and retraining and rehoming. And we encourage the owners to make a donation to that organization as well, but it's not required. We want to do everything we can to make the owners and trainers feel comfortable that whatever they can do is great, and we're going to make sure that horse gets taken care of.
Thank you. And how do you determine the stipend that goes with the horse to the Aftercare organization?
It's a minimum. We just raised our minimum to $2,000. So even if the horse is perfectly sound, just a little too slow, and has good conformation, good-looking horse, and is going to be easy to adopt out, that horse will go with a minimum of $2,000. And then it goes up to $5,000 depending on how long the rehab is going to be, what that horse's prognosis for a second career, how many options he will have or she will have, and how adoptable the horse will be. So we take a look at all those factors and determine what the donation will be.
Great. So Lucinda, you are the executive director of CARMA, established in 2007 as a grant maker, providing funding to aftercare organizations for thoroughbreds that raced in California. But in 2012, CARMA expanded its programming and established an on-track placement program for horses that have raced or had a recorded work at a California track or training center in the last 6 months. And since the beginning of your program, your placement program, you've placed 525 thoroughbreds, which is amazing. So tell us about the formation of CARMA, the placement program, and what the program looks like today.
Well, as you said, we started as a grant-making program. So the idea was we were raising money, and we were in turn allocating money to other 501c3 charities that actually took horses in, retrained them, and adopted them, or provided sanctuary. And it became clear to us in end of 2010, 2011, beginning of 2011, that the Horsemen owners and trainers needed more support from that. Finding a way to retire their horse, they weren't having success just reaching out to these individual organizations kind of scattered throughout the state. And so we spent about 1.5 years developing the CARMA placement program, working through, looking at other, what was kind of popular at that time, stall surrenders, right? Surrender stalls at racetracks. Looking at those models, not liking what we saw, trying to figure out how we could improve on that and create a program that provided the most amount of resources for the horsemen while not putting the burden on any one particular charity. And we took our first horse after a lot of back and forths and program development. We took our first horse at the very end of 2012. Originally, our plan was to have no more than 5 horses at a time. We would have those horses for no more than 30 days in our program to provide a triage assessment. We would look at their temperament, any injuries that they had, gather any diagnostic material quickly from the attending veterinarians and owners, and then immediately place that horse with one of CARMA's grant recipients, which are our charity partners. That lasted 60 days. Currently, the program has anywhere between 25 and 30 horses. We have those horses for anywhere between 60 days to 2 years, depending on the severity of their injury. I think something to note, being California, we race in an island. We don't have access to farms, a large amount of farms, smaller farms, training centers, or other racing jurisdictions. So typically, horses that are retiring into the CARMA program are at the very end of their racing career, and they are at the end of that racing career due to an injury. So the time they spend in our program is significant. Unlike Take the Lead, we don't have partners that can take an injured horse or a freshly bowed tendon and invest 12 to 18 months for that injury to heal before they begin their retraining and adoption process. So I think that is a bit of a unique aspect of the CARMA placement program. We really do have horses in our program for an extended period of time, and often they do have a retiring injury, which is the reason for their retirement.
And do you require a donation for horses coming into your program? How does that work?
We do, yeah. We have a very similar process to Andy. We have, again, we've been in business for a while now, so I frankly get a lot of the calls. But we do have an application online where owners can reach out strictly through that. We do require a donation. It is, I'm going to talk to my board, because listening to a $2,000 donation is amazing. Our donation is $500. Originally, when we set that was to offset the transportation costs from the racetrack to our layup farm. And in 2012, $500 meant I covered the van ride for $175 and had extra to cover my administrative costs. Unfortunately, today, that $500, it's, $400 to get the horse off the racetrack, and
Inflation.
There's not much left for admin costs. So, but we do require a small donation. I will also say that many of our horsemen, owners and trainers, once that horse has been placed, will make a donation to the charity that takes that horse. So we have a great group of horsemen in California that do want to follow their horses and do support their horses when they get to those charity partners.
And Chris, we'll turn to you. You're the president of Galloping Out, an on-track placement program serving Hawthorne Park. Galloping Out was created in 2010 by the Illinois Thoroughbred Horsemen's Association, and the ITHA remains the parent organization of Galloping Out, although Galloping Out does have its own charitable status. Since 2010, Galloping Out has facilitated the placement of 350 thoroughbreds. Tell us a bit about the program and how the relationship with the ITHA has contributed to the success.
Sure. So in 2010, a gentleman that was on the ITHA board by the name of Nate Ruffalo came up with the idea that we should get in gear to have an aftercare program, and he could sense this was becoming more and more apparent in the industry. It was something that was very important. So hats off to him, because it turned into something really special for ITHA to have Galloping Out. So ITHA helped fund Galloping Out, get it off the ground, if you will. And since then, in the last 5 years, they support it financially. But we've been able to stand on our own since the last 5 years. So the ITHA is also administrative, handles all the administrative of Galloping Out. Jan Eli is our coordinator. She's here today. That's the part that the ITHA has right now. We have developed it in with the board of directors that we have, and we do everything through the ITHA, and we also let the board of the ITHA know. So every month I give them a report on how we have moved the program forward, how many horses are in it, and what we plan to do into the future. We get a lot of questions from the board members, which is good. I like that. We also plan on doing a lot of fundraisers, and we do that through the board, let them know what we're doing there to raise money to help the program as well.
Great. And kind of operationally, does the program operate similar to the other two in terms of the intake process and donation requirements and placements and things like that?
Yes, very similar. So if a trainer wants to put a horse in the program, they come in and fill out a form, and we need a veterinarian to also sign off on it. We'll have our board then look at the form and the placement, and we think decide whether or not where the horse may go. We have different farms that we use in the Chicagoland area that are part of our program. Some in the past, we were very careful on how many we took in. We're capped at 30 right now, and it's gone up as we've gone through the years. But it was all about financing, and so we had to be careful what we took in. We wanted to take horses in that we thought could transition quickly and get through the program and get adopted. But since that time, we've become more financially stable. We can take horses with injuries and then rehab them. We also have a fund set up to do surgeries. So in case a horse has a chip and we think that knee or ankle that could require some surgery to help move it forward, then we do that. We don't require a donation, though we'd like to see one if it's possible. But on surgeries, we do ask for the aftercare after the surgery, if the horse could come back to the track and that trainer take care of it until it's ready to be moved on to one of our farms.
Gotcha. It's quite the collaborative effort on all of the programs, it sounds like. It's really important. But also importantly, let's talk about funding, because these programs don't run themselves. So Andy, we can start with you. How is your program funded? And when you were forming, looking back many years now, was it a tough ask for that funding? Were there any kind of challenges in getting some of that institutional support?
It really was not in New York at the time. Rick Violet was the president of the New York Thoroughbred Horsemen's Association, and he was a huge advocate for aftercare. So between Rick and Rick Schosberg and myself, we put these programs together, and NYTHA put up the funding. So the vast majority of the funding when we started came right from the Horsemen's group and was very stable. And then since that time, we have added an aftercare surcharge. So every horse that is claimed, not aftercare, a claiming surcharge, every horse that's claimed in New York, there's 1.5% of that claiming price goes to our program. And actually, we split that with the TAA. So we get 60% of it, the TAA gets 40%. And so between those two avenues of revenue, and we also get a per start fee in New York from the owners and from the jockeys. So more than 90% of our funding is stable, sustainable, that we don't have to worry about it. We're very lucky in New York.
That's excellent. And Lucinda?
We're really lucky in California, too. The placement program is completely funded by a matching contribution from the Stronach Group. So when we started this program, we had the opportunity to partner with the Stronach Group. And in California, in order to support aftercare, we have a owner purse contribution. So 0.3% of purses comes to CARMA, and that funds our programming, exclusively our grants every year. We do supplemental fundraising to add to that. When we started the placement program, the Stronach Group said we will match dollar for dollar what the owners are contributing in the months that Santa Anita's racing. So they currently race about 7 months a year. So out of 12, I get 7 months of funding to run that program, which we're able to do. I have great partnership with my layup farms. We have great support from our track veterinarians, a great relationship with our equine surgery center that allows us to have access to discounted surgeries or treatments or diagnostics if we need it. And so, yeah, we're able to rely on that kind of sustained funding, which is a gift, really.
Absolutely. And Chris, how are you funded?
So we have a start fee. It's very minimal. It's $5 a start, and we tried to move it up, but we're not in exactly the most best situation in Chicago. So we've been very cognizant of that, of not getting that start fee up too high. But that's also matched by the track at the end of the meet. Then whatever that start fee brings in, the track matches that and also contributes a contribution as well. And that's negotiated in the contract between the ITHA and the racetrack. Probably our biggest form of revenue coming in is donations. We're highly supported by a lot of great people annually that have come through for us and really, really cherish our program and support it in a big way. And then we apply for grants whenever possible. And then probably, as Lucinda was saying, we have a lot of horsemen who like to help us out, so they'll give us a break on shipping a horse. Clinics will do, or our veterinarians on the backstretch have been very helpful in helping offset the cost of anything that we need to do veterinarian-wise. And then the clinics as well, when we need to do a surgery, they're willing to give us a break on that as well.
Excellent. Okay, this next question is also for all of you. Tell me about what challenges have you faced with your program, and what advice would you give to a track or a horseman's group or any other entity really considering starting an on-track placement program? And in terms of collaboration with other entities, what do you think works best, and what does effective collaboration look like?
I think my advice to anyone wanting to start a program like this is to first determine what your horsemen need. I think it's going to be region dependent and track dependent. In California, we have a group of horsemen. We're not a big breeding state, but our racing operates in urban areas, and so most of the horsemen at the time we started our program didn't have good connections to farms or equestrians that they had relationships with. So if that's the need in your area, you're going to want to create a program where you're taking that horse from the track and providing those horsemen with the information they need to adequately retire the horse. And in this case, it would be taking the horse right from them. But in New York or maybe here in Kentucky, you have more access to an agricultural-based community, a farming community. That placement program might look like you facilitating connections and networking between horsemen at the track and farms or charities off track. So I think it really is going to be dependent on the region that you're operating in, when you're building out your program. That would be my first bit of advice.
Andy, any thoughts on that?
Yeah, I mean, kind of to what Chris said before, like making sure that all the members of your community are on board with what you're doing. So the vets, as Chris mentioned, have been integral to making sure that we get good vet information. So when the horse goes to aftercare, they know exactly what they're to expect. The van companies, they'll give you a little break. Making sure that you get the word out to your owners and trainers so that they know how to find you and to be successful. Working with the vets at the track have been great. They'll actually identify horses. Hey, maybe you want to go talk to this trainer. That horse might need a retirement home. So just making sure that everybody's on the same page and you're all communicating and you have good network like that is really important.
Any thoughts?
Yeah, I agree with Andy's 100% right. It's a collaboration of the horsemen. The one thing we've probably run into trouble with is that they think we're being selective. And, okay, you turned my horse down, why'd you take that guy's horse? They have to understand we were under financial restraints at the time of trying to get galloping out up and going. We're in a better position now. We're able to take more of them. I think that if the horsemen can understand that when they see their horse headed toward retirement, that's the time to retire. It seems to me I see some of our guys, and they're all great horsemen, but they might try to squeeze it just a little more than they should, and they hit that one more race when, in fact, if they stopped, it gives us a better chance of giving that horse a better chance of transitioning a new career and having a great life thereafter.
Right. Amen to that.
I just want to add, I think that when you're looking at creating a track program, like those are really important things to consider, right? That if you're creating a program, you need to be doing that build out of relationship building, education, communication with horsemen, communication with the veterinary community, regulatory vets, trainers on what the expectations are before you launch your program. I think in my experience with CARMA, we took a long time to develop this program. We took a long time to write our policies and protocols so that when we launched, we could clearly and effectively communicate to horsemen what the expectations were. That no, we were not going to take your intact male. You needed to do that gelding before you call us. No, we're not going to take these kinds of injuries because we don't have the resources to rehabilitate that. Yes, we can do this, no, we can't do that. So I think it's incumbent on the administrators of the program to have those policies and procedures lined out ahead of time before you're rolling it out to your horsemen, so that when you do, you can answer those questions and there is that collaboration like Chris and Andy say.
That makes sense. I think clarity ahead of time probably makes all your jobs a little easier in the long run. Kind of along those lines, talking about relationships and sort of building trust, how do you effectively go about building that trust in those relationships with owners or trainers so they view your program as a resource, kind of their first go-to instead of perhaps a last resort or not thinking about it as an option?
I think it's the reputation that we've built. People, the word gets around, hey, galloping out is going to give them a good life thereafter. And I think that, as it is in anything in racing, we've got our critics, okay? Spending money on this, but they've now understood that how important this is to the industry, because it's nationwide, if not worldwide, how important it is. That took us a while to get into that. So I think it's building a trust, seeing that we are doing what's best interest of the horse, and then for their horses. And then I think going back to them and showing them where that horse went and how successful the horse is and the good environment and the good life it's got thereafter, that builds a lot of confidence as well.
Yeah, I would agree. I think time is our biggest ally in this case, and that is unfortunate, right? We wish that we could start these programs that there would be a level of trust kind of out of the gate, but in my experience in racing, you've got to be doing it a while before people will buy in that you're in it for the long haul. I think in California, the idea of CARMA was not popular when we started. It just wasn't the idea that we would start an organization that was funded from owners' purses that would go strictly to aftercare got a lot of pushback. So I think for us starting the placement program, we were already used to the idea that it wouldn't be popular right away. And like Chris said, you just consistently do the work. We consistently take the horses. We give them good care, strong rehabilitation, and for us, placing the horse in the right home, whether that is an aftercare, a TAA-accredited aftercare charity, an individual program, an equestrian program, a trainer looking to find its next sport horse, a therapy program that isn't associated with racing at all. I think matching the horse to the right place is key. That means that that horse has the highest chance of success and will stay wherever they go. And then, as Chris said, we can communicate with those track connections on how that horse is doing and the success that it has in the next career. So I think time is the key.
On your side, for sure. And Andy?
I think after our funding, the biggest asset we have is Rick Schosberg, who trained horses before, and was still training when he became president of our organization. He's a trainer that's been in New York a very long time. People know him, people trust him. He's got the, strongest reputation for integrity and for taking good care of his horses. And I've been around New York a long time too, so between the two of us, we really already had relationships with most of the trainers. And so right off the rip, everybody was like, oh, this is a good program and something we can trust. And then over the years, they've come to learn that we're going to do all we can to make sure that their horse is placed and gets a good home, and the outcomes are good. So I think, in 13 years, we've built that trust.
For sure. Talk about the follow-up that you all do, and what led me to this question is, when you're doing follow-up on horses, or your aftercare organizations are doing the follow-up, is that then being communicated back to the owners and trainers and perhaps giving them more confidence in, where their horses are going and ultimately your programs?
For our program, since we're just a liaison program, we don't take the horses, so it's really up to the individual aftercare organization what the communication is with the original owner. Some are very proactive in making sure that the owners know that a horse has been adopted and where they've gone, and some it's not in their business plan.
Yeah, for the CARMA placement program, we do follow-up on the horses that we place. In the first year, we're doing quarterly check-ins after placement. After that, we're doing annual check-ins. So, there isn't, I think that the communication with the track connections is really dependent on the track connections. I wish I could say that I have a lot of track connections reaching out to me asking about a horse they placed with me 5 years ago. We just don't get that. I think, like Andy said, it really is dependent on the individuals and kind of where their interest is and whether or not a specific horse had a special place in their heart. We have, after doing this since this many years, I've got horsemen that regularly retire all of their horses with us, or the majority of their horses with us, and they may not ask me about 5, but there's one that they want regular communication on. Mm-hmm. So I think it's really kind of dependent on how they run their racing and breeding business.
Gotcha. And Chris, do some of your partner farms conduct follow-up?
Yeah, our farms do. Yeah, they do the follow-up to see how the horse is doing. I think in their adoption agreements, they have a clause in there that they need to keep in communication. Mm-hmm. The adopter does with the farm. And then a lot of times, she'll reach out to the farms or the adopter to see how the horse is doing. We get a lot back on social media from a lot of these people who adopt them that are very proud and looking for the next one. So the networking seems to really work in that respect. And then we have our horsemen that'll come and say, hey, what happened? Can you tell me about my horse? Yeah. We don't get that a lot, but we do once in a while.
Yeah, I would add, I think social media has been an amazing thing for the aftercare community, right? So much of our communication and our sharing of information does happen on social media, for good or for bad. But, at CARMA, we created a Facebook group for our placement program graduates. So we've got a graduates page, we've got resources. So anybody that's adopted a horse that graduated from the placement program's got a place to connect with that community. And so I think that is a great way for owners and trainers that are on social media, those things pop up. And so I think that's another way for them to keep in touch.
Sure. And again, question for everyone. What does success look like for your on-track placement programs? Is it, whatever you consider a success to be? Is it one horse? Is it the program itself? Is it the collaboration? What are the biggest kind of things you wish to highlight?
For me, it's the program.
Yeah.
In horse racing, it's probably one of the most proudest things that I do is be president of this association and this group, and then it's the individual horse thereafter, because we get a lot from social media back to us, or people send us, and to see the video of those horses going on to a second career, it's what makes it all worthwhile. So it's the program and the horse, I'd say, together.
Yeah. Either one?
So many things to be proud of. I think the biggest success for CARMA is the way that we're able to place horses in the right spots. So I think the team that we have in place at our layup farms, our veterinarians that support us, these individuals are really getting to know these horses, and so when we place them, they thrive where they are, and I think that is something then that I can take back to our horsemen and say, look, we're doing a good job of finding the right spot for your individual, and you can have a lot of confidence that that individual is going to be successful where it is. And if for some reason something changes down the line, there's this whole network in place of people that will then help that horse figure out what the next thing it wants to do is. Because I think one thing, you know, at the track, when that horse leaves the racetrack, you think, okay, it's going on to its next career. It's going to be a show jumper, or it's going to be a therapy horse. And then that's it for the rest. But that isn't actually the case, right? So many of these horses have 3 or 4 or 5 things that they do post-racing. So I think, to me, that's kind of what we're most proud of, is that we're finding that right spot, and then we have this system in place that when it's ready to move on to do the next thing, our community is there to figure out what that is.
Yeah. Andy?
I think one of the things that I think has been successful is getting the word out, not just among owners and trainers, but also to the public, because there's still so much of a misconception that there isn't a safety net for these horses, there aren't programs in place, and what happens to these horses. And being able to use social media and other outlets to get the word out that there really is a huge commitment in the industry to making sure that horses have these safe and happy and healthy retirements. You know, we started an event in Saratoga, I guess we'll have our 6th year of it this year, of Aftercare Day. Mm-hmm. And so we bring some retired racehorses out to the track, we bring the Aftercare partners out, and you know, all the fans at the track that day get to meet the people that are doing the work, the horses, and see what they've been doing since they left the racetrack. You know, we get some media coverage for it, and I think that's, you know, just getting some positive PR for the industry has been really important to us.
Very true. Okay, just kind of the flip side of that, what would you say has been the most difficult part of operating an on-track placement program that maybe people outside of your average workday might not quite see, you know, maybe from a personal perspective or programmatic? Any thoughts on that?
I think the thing that probably most people don't realize is I've got a stable of 25 to 30 horses that I'm responsible for. So, I mean,
job.
I'm tracking and keeping track of a stable of horses that is, you know, a fairly large herd. And they're spread out over 2 separate locations with multiple injuries or in stages of retraining. So I think when you think about a placement program, or me managing a placement program, or any of us managing a placement program, I think that's probably the thing that people don't realize, is that I've got a herd of horses that I'm managing. And they're like toddlers, so they're always getting in trouble.
Yes, you do have a very big stable to manage. Chris, any thoughts?
So one of the things that we've always had a challenge with is that we have ones that are been in the program a long, long time, just don't get adopted for whatever reason it might be. So we've kind of looked into the sanctuary situation for those horses, if we can put them on a list and then give them a good life thereafter. That's been the big challenge because we pay the farms per horse per month. And so we have to keep that, and that holds in a spot where we could bring in a fresh horse. Right. That's probably been one of our bigger challenges. And then sometimes another challenge that we have, but we've accepted it now, is that when we see a horse that's gone on through the program and we get the word that that horse is not in a good situation, we've gone back and brought it back in. Mm-hmm. That's actually a good sign. I mean, a good development on the part of galloping out. At first we were like, how are we going to do this? Or, you know, but we feel the responsibility, and rightfully so, to bring them back in and then make sure we get them adopted back out to the right ones. But those are probably the two biggest challenges we've faced over the last 10 years on how to adjust to those, and we've adjusted to it.
Gotcha. And Andy, any thoughts on kind of the most difficult part of
I would say, since we don't take possession of the horses, sometimes there is a backlog in finding placements, for the horses. And, that can be a challenge if the trainer needs the stall or whatever, and, continuing to, pay for the upkeep of that horse while we're waiting for the spot. But we actually have had more in the last few months of owners that have voluntarily taken the horse to the farm and given that horse the rehab time, which really helps the whole ecosystem, because now when it gets to the aftercare organization, it doesn't need so much downtime, and they'll be able to get that horse back into retraining and onto an adopter faster. But yeah, adoptions don't happen as quickly as we'd like. The stalls don't open as quickly as we'd like, but that's a challenge we face.
Gotcha. I think one thing that's interesting is you're all doing the same thing, but with subtle differences. Like you said, Andy, Take the Lead doesn't take possession of the horses. You're acting as a conduit between the race owner and the aftercare organization. CARMA takes care, custody, and control, but not ownership. While the horse goes to the layup facility and then ultimately on to an aftercare facility. Whereas Galloping Out does take possession of the horses, and then you essentially pay board at your partner facilities. I think, Lucinda, you mentioned that, the program you started at the very beginning kind of morphed a little bit. Maybe talk a little bit about how you kind of figure your way out along the way, like what works for you and what doesn't, especially, in those different sort of areas.
Yeah, I mean, I think, starting a program kind of from the ground up, like literally it was just a 2-sheet piece of paper. We've had to adapt as we go along. As I mentioned in my opening, our original plan was for no more than 5 horses for a maximum of 30 days. And what we realized quickly was that our greater, and this is in 2012, 2013, so this is pre-TAA accreditation and I'm going to say kind of the coalescing of the aftercare community and industry, kind of under an umbrella. And I think what's challenging is that you create a program that you think is going to work one way and you implement it to the best of your ability, and the environment tells you that you need to make corrections, right? And what we realized very quickly was, in our original concept, we were going to act as a triage program. We would take the horse, 30-day assessment, treat immediate injuries, provide information to our charity partners, and those 15 or 20 groups that CARMA worked with would pick that horse up based on what its potential was in the future. Is it a sanctuary horse? Okay, these are our sanctuary groups. We want to make sure that the horses go to the right types of organizations. It kind of quickly became apparent that we needed more time and that our charity partners weren't in a position to take those horses as quickly. I think what that means is that the stable grew from 5 horses to 10 horses to 12 horses to 15 horses to we just kept adding horses. And I think along the way, we just had to make adjustments, and that meant kind of financial adjustments, recognizing we were going to be spending more money, and kind of administrative adjustments, recognizing that we were going to have horses under our care for longer periods of time. And we just kind of had to adapt to that, kind of year by year as the program grew. And I think to Chris's point, when you are faced with a sanctuary horse, that horse in your program, if you are taking possession of or care of a horse where you're paying board on it, a horse with a significant injury that needs 12 months off before you can even begin to assess whether it can do something else it's a large chunk of money in a stall in a space that 2 or 3 or 5 other horses could occupy. And so you have to balance the need of support for these sanctuary type or critically injured horses with kind of the overall need, right? Because the horsemen that have those horses still need help. I think that's one thing at CARMA we said we're not, there are very few injuries we won't take. And we made that decision on purpose, right? As a service to our horsemen. For us, it feels like if there's a serious injury that needs a significant amount of time off, we would rather take that horse into our program and balance however many other horses we can take to ensure that that horse doesn't fall through the cracks, because those are our most at-risk horses. So I think those are kind of some of the things that as you spend time in a program and as the program develops, you kind of shift and react to the environment that's, and your economy around you, right? What's happening in racing, what's happening at the racing circuit, what's happening in the breeding industry, what's happening at racetracks. All of those things have an impact on what the horsemen need in terms of their retiring horses.
Yeah. Chris, Andy, any thoughts about that?
Yeah, I'll just echo what Lucinda said. It's adapting to each and every year. We learn a lot on how to improve galloping out, but with the trends of the industry, the way things are going at the racetrack, we have to be aware and listen to all of that. And in the beginning of galloping out, we were pretty rigid on what we were doing as far as what we were taking. With the more funding that came in and the more support of galloping out financially from especially donations that come in, we've been able to be more, when an application comes in, okay, this horse got an injury, normally we'd say no, okay, not right now. Now we say, okay, let's look and see what's the best route to go and make sure that horse gets a chance. So just being able to adapt each and every year to what we see that's in front of us and listen to our horsemen and what they think is they need. And I think that plays really well in how we've been successful.
Excellent. Any other thoughts, Andy?
I guess just kind of modernizing, using online forms, expanding what information we ask for, making sure that the aftercare organizations have as much possible information so, that does the horse need a Coggins? Does the horse need vaccinations? What other information can we possibly provide? So we've constantly revamped the intake form and the vet form to add to that information. And then also, using social media more and more to get the word out and to get, people aware of what we're doing. I think those are probably the two biggest changes that have happened over the years.
Mm-hmm. And certainly additional information is only going to help the future of that horse. If we know his history, that's going to help the aftercare organization, that's going to help the adopter in the future. So last question here. If you all could leave the audience with one message about responsible transition planning for your horses, what would it be?
I would say...
We're all so eager.
I would say, I think I've said this before, don't take it too far. When the horse is giving you an indication that it's seen as better days at the racetrack, give it a chance for a second career. That's been, I just see too many of them that have been pushed to the point where it sets back the opportunity to get them in the right direction and adopt them. And then I've seen trainers and owners come to me and say, hey, we had one a couple weeks ago say, that's it. I'm going to give him a chance to give a second career. And we got a horse that's got a really good chance of moving quickly through the program. That would be the one thing I'd say that stands out the most.
Yep, I agree. The number one thing owners can do to ensure success for their horses in the future, retire them sound.
Yes, 100%. Please retire your horses sound. But I think another thing that I would add is plan for retirement, right? This should be the first thing you think about when you decide to get into racehorse ownership. And I think that while there has been a lot of progress made in that direction, we still have a long way to go in this industry of educating breeders and owners about the importance of having a retirement plan for the horses you're involved with. And that means when you're thinking about what you're going to invest in this sport and what you're going to invest in your racing stable, you're also thinking about what you're going to spend to responsibly and adequately retire the horse that you're acquiring. For me, that means you need it needs to be written into your business plan. And if you don't know where to start to begin that, I would say there are charities all across the country, TA accredited, track-based programs, funding charities, grant-making organizations that can provide you with some information and guidance on how to get that in your business plan. It just has to be a part of your business plan.
It kind of, adding to that, a lot of times retiring a horse at the appropriate time is a good business decision for the owner, because keeping that horse in training when there might be an issue brewing, that horse isn't going to perform to its best, and you're going to put additional money into training and vet and farrier and all the associated costs, and at the end of the time, you're out the money, and now maybe the horse isn't quite as sound as he might have been if you had stopped on them previously. So it really is something for owners to think about. And let's face it, we're all dreamers in racing, right? So you want to see what your horse can do. You don't want to give up, and you're like, we could still, have some fun with this horse. But, taking a step back and thinking, well, what really is the best decision for all? It really turns out that quite often the best decision for the horse is also the best decision for the owner.
Wise words. Well, thank you all. And like I said at the beginning of this panel, the primary goal of an on-track placement program is to facilitate responsible rehoming and make it as easy as possible for owners and trainers to set up their horses for success after racing. In my perfect aftercare world, every racetrack would either have an on-track placement program or a dedicated aftercare liaison to act as a resource that many of these folks do. Because the success of these programs is really proof positive of the impact that they have on the future of our horses. Thank you.